We're back. But here's this thing. I love it when you say, um, the history, the future is a history that's an unknowable truth that, you know, it's like preparing for the worst and hoping for the best due to unconscious intentions. So I feel like, that's also an interest. Like, so Spinoza's ethics, how much does it take into account, you know, the collective unconscious, psychoanalysis, and what we, if we do believe in, the unconscious, uh, the impulses and the drives and our unconscious intentions. Because when Spinoza wrote ethics, what's a time frame so that we can,
The 16th century.
right, so not the 60s, but 16th century. So the discovery of the unconscious that we attribute with Freud, and that's in 1923.
Um, what? Well, Freud was writing in the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century. So,
What do we wager is the guess at? Take a stab at when the unconscious was discovered via
oh,
Freud.
well, that's a good question. Because Freud, you know, invented the Freudian unconscious, but actually,
Right,
scholars have pointed out, thankfully, that there were other conceptions of the unconscious before Freud. So
right,
Freud, he may have formulated one of the better conceptions of the unconscious. It was around in more or less, elaborated ways before him, and you can find books on like pre-Freudian unconscious. There's somewhat of an unconscious in, um, obviously, well, there's somewhat of an unconscious in um, Hegel. There's an
mm-hmm,
unconscious in
mm-hmm,
Leibniz, which
mm-hmm.
Deleuze prefers. He calls it the differential unconscious over the symbolic unconscious. Again, we have these two levels. Differential, desiring machines, affect is totally meaningless. It's just productive. It just makes things. It's these micro perceptions. The differential unconscious, it knows nothing of meaning, and there's nothing to interpret because there's nothing in there. But the Freudian, the symbolic level, is a different sort of unconscious. It's sort of the second, uh, it's the upper level, like Deleuze prefers Leibniz's, differential unconscious. Freud has the symbolic unconscious,
Mm-hmm.
which symbols are inherently meaningful. They
Mm-hmm.
are the essence and element of meaning. And so,
Mm-hmm.
um, anyways, you can find the unconscious in many philosophers and other thinkers and artists. You could say, the argument could be made that almost all of Freudianism was really a certain reading of Nietzsche, like in a way, the depth psychology that Nietzsche, you know, wrote, um, directly and indirectly, influenced the growth of psychoanalysis, um, and kind of a little bit of a repressed thing, like Freud definitely wrote some uh, some things where he mentioned Nietzsche and commended his work, but it was not much. The debt was not ever
Right.
explicitly
It's hot off the presses, you guys.
stated,
Hot
and
off the
so,
presses.
and in a way, you could almost see it as like you could say that everything that Freud wrote, like, he stole from Nietzsche, but you could also say
Okay.
you could
You
also
could
say
say
that they
that.
were pulled apart, that they were enemies,
Right.
that Nietzsche's whole work was a critique of Judeo-Christian morality, and Freud was like, you know, some sort of ultimate alibi for Judeo-Christian morality. taking it out of the realm of theology and putting it in internalizing, putting it in the subject in terms of like, these stages and these complexes and these instincts and this like, and so the same way that the Marxists would say that Freudo-Marxism is bogus because, look at the Freudian subject. He's pathetic. He could never make revolution. And I don't mean Freud himself. I mean like the subject that Freud was studying and the psyche that he theorized, that the revolutionary Marxists saw as being a totally fascist subjectivity. And in a way, Freud could be, the 20th century articulation of what Nietzsche was critiquing in Judeo-Christian morality. But the unconscious, it could go further back. I don't know who was the first person to have an explicit conception of the unconscious, but in another sense, Spinoza, it's not just that you could say that Freud and Lacan are just footnotes to Nietzsche. You could say that the three of them are footnotes to Spinoza. Like, that's exactly what the unconscious is. Lacan says that the unconscious is God, or God is just a primitive word for the unconscious. That Spinoza's equation of God and nature, or the material universe, as the body of God, that is the unconscious, and that's what Freud and Lacan mean by the unconscious. They don't mean something it's inside your skull case, like they don't. That's not the unconscious they're talking about. They're talking about an intersubjective structure. It's like, think of a play. You have a cast of characters, you have script, you have dialogue, you have events happen, you have plot changes. That script is the unconscious. It's a certain dramatization involving multiple agencies. It's not your personal, feelings and thoughts that you are not aware of, even though those are an expression of the play that you're acting in, you don't know it. And that's what Spinoza means by nature, except it's not just intersubjective, in a small sense. It's intersubjective in the fact that it's everything. It's not just a couple dozen subjects. Your family, your friends, your coworkers. Maybe your Dunbar number, 150 people in your unconscious. Like, if you had to make a little social networking diagram with 150 nodes, like that's your unconscious basically. And it's populated with imagos of all sorts. You get from Hollywood movies and fairy tales and lullabies as a kid and weird commercials and advertisements and people you see on the bus. And
You talk a lot about diagramming, and I see a lot of visual diagramming in the way that you talk about philosophy and aesthetic. Can we also see some of your diagrams that because that's a definite theme is the sort of